A few years ago, my family decided to move away from our small town, seeking a fresh start. While my parents were out of town choosing a new house, I decided to take advantage of the empty house and invited a few friends and cousins for a thrilling adventure. We were determined to seek out something truly spine-chilling, so we set our sights on Bryce Hospital, a psychiatric facility known for its dark past and eerie reputation. Bryce Hospital had once housed the mentally ill, but as the patient population dwindled and reports of mistreatment and torture surfaced, it was eventually abandoned. The building had been left to rot, nature reclaiming it with creeping vines and encroaching grass. Despite the ominous stories surrounding it, we were undeterred, driven by the thrill of urban exploration. We set out around 11 p.m., aiming to arrive by 2 a.m. The drive was filled with excitement and laughter, but as we approached the location, a sense of unease began to settle over us. We reached the dirt road leading to the hospital and for a moment hesitated. The darkness was thick, and the overgrown paths seemed endless, but our curiosity pushed us forward. When we finally reached the hospital, the sight before us was both mesmerizing and terrifying as well. The massive building was in ruins, its roof mostly caved in, and vines crawling up its crumbling walls. In what was once the parking lot stood an old, decrepit water fountain. Now completely overtaken by nature, the scene was shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by our headlights. We turned off the car and stepped out, the oppressive silence of the place wrapping around us as we ventured inside. The first thing that struck me were the pentagrams sprayed on the walls, a chilling sign of previous visitors. We made our way up the stairs, which were more of a suggestion than a solid structure, and climbed onto what remained of the roof. From up there, we noticed a faint light in the front of the building, like the glow of a phone screen. We called out, but the light vanished almost immediately. My cousin, trying to keep us safe, led us into another room. As we entered, I felt an unsettling chill. I wandered off into a nearby room filled with old mattresses and more graffiti. Suddenly, I heard a faint noise, a soft thud, like a rock hitting the window. I brushed it off and rejoined my friends. We decided to explore the basement, a decision we quickly regretted. The stairs were barely intact, and we struggled to reach the bottom. As we caught our breath, a voice from the back of the room froze us in place. I was paralyzed with fear as my cousin slowly advanced with his flashlight. When he reached the far end, he saw a figure hunched over, staring blankly at the wall. The figure turned around, and the face we saw was beyond horrifying. The man's eyes were vacant, his expression blank. Then, without warnings, he let out a guttural scream and charged at us. Panic erupted as we bolted, scrambling to escape. We climbed out of a window and found ourselves in the dark woods behind the hospital, the man's screams growing louder behind us. We ran blindly through the forest, our breaths ragged and hearts pounding. I was trailing behind, my body aching from running into trees and branches. Finally, we stumbled upon a trail and followed it, hoping it would lead us back to the car. After an exhausting hour, we emerged from the trees, seeing the hospital in the distance and feeling a glimmer of hope. But as we neared our car, a new wave of terror struck. We heard rustling in the bushes, and then, out of nowhere, a rock struck my friend. The man from the basement emerged from the underbrush, and we had no choice but to sprint for the car. We managed to get inside and lock the doors just in time. As we started the engine, the headlights revealed a man racing towards us, glass bottle in hand, smashing it against the windows. With a surge of adrenaline, we sped away from the hospital, our hearts pounding as we left the nightmare behind. The drive home was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts, grappling with the shock of what had just happened. That night was the end of our urban exploration adventures. The terror we experienced was enough to extinguish any lingering fascination with the unknown. The horrors of Bryce Hospital had left an indelible mark on us, and we never ventured into abandoned places again. A few years back, in the heart of rural Georgia, my brother Sab and I embarked on a chilling adventure. I was just 15 years old and Sap was 18. He was deeply intrigued by exploring eerie abandoned places. He had heard about a vast decrepit house not far from us, an opportunity too enticing to pass up. Determined to make the most of it, Seb decided to bring me along for what promised to be a spine-tingling experience. We parked our car in a secluded spot, nestled within a dense thicket of trees. From here, the house was invisible, and we had to traverse a neglected concrete road that seemed to have been abandoned for ages. Cracks in the road were overrun with wild grass and weeds, adding to the desolate atmosphere. The overgrown vegetation around us felt like nature itself was trying to reclaim the area. As we walked, a sudden chill ran down my spine when I noticed a woman trailing behind us on the road. I turned to Sep, anxiety creeping in, and asked what we should do now. Sep, ever the seasoned explorer, advised me to stay calm and keep walking. Running would only attract unwanted attention. The woman appeared to be casually strolling, her hands clasped behind her back as if she were out for a leisurely walk. We continued at a brisk pace, but when I glanced back, I saw she was much closer now, her smile unnervingly wide. Her next words sent a shiver through me. "Lovely day today, isn't it?" My brother and I exchanged worried glances as if on silent agreement. We quickened our pace. The woman's seemingly benign demeanor had taken a sinister turn. As she neared us, her voice took on a more unsettling tone. "I have to go to bed now." Her statement was cryptic and chilling. Without exchanging another word, Seb and I broke into a hurried walk, hearts racing. We didn't stop until we reached the house, relieved to find her nowhere in sight. The fact that she had vanished into the woods was unsettling, but we pushed forward, hoping to escape the growing sense of dread. The house itself was a skeletal remnant of its former self, overtaken ivy and decay. Shattered windows suggested it had been explored before, and with a mix of trepidation and excitement, we climbed through one of the broken panes. Inside, the house was nearly intact. Furniture, decor, and even rotting food in the fridge were all left behind. A macabre snapshot of the past. As we ventured into the basement, we were met with a clutter of discarded papers and trash. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and neglect. Amid the disarray, a sudden thump from upstairs froze us in place. We glanced at each other, trying to dismiss it as the noises of an old house settling, and continued our exploration. We moved back up to the first floor, then ascended to the second. The layout was simple, a bathroom straight ahead, and a small hallway leading to various rooms. We turned left into a bedroom, its furnishings dusty and untouched. As Sep stepped out, his face turned pale and his voice trembled with fear as he beckoned me to follow. At the end of the hallway, the woman from earlier stood in another bedroom, her creepy smile fixed in place. Her presence was unnerving as before, as she made a chilling offer. "Do you want to see what's behind my back?" The terror in Seb's eyes was enough to make him push me towards the door. We bolted, our hearts pounding in our chests. As we sprinted out of the house, I couldn't help but glance back, expecting her to appear at one of the windows. She was nowhere to be seen, but the dread lingered. We ran through the overgrown grass, my stamina waning, until we finally reached the safety of the car. I was gasping for air, feeling on the verge of collapse from exhaustion. Seb drove us home in silence, both of us lost in a whirlpool of fear and confusion. We speculated wildly about the woman. Was she a deranged individual who had escaped from somewhere, or was she somehow living in that forsaken house? The biggest mystery remained unsolved. I mean, what had she been hiding behind her back all along? That day left us with more questions than answers, and the terror of that encounter stayed with us long after we left the house. It was an experience that turned a simple exploration into a haunting memory, one that neither of us would soon forget. Starting a new job always comes with a mix of anticipation and anxiety, and my summer gig at a local carnival in downtown LA was no exception. I had landed a position to earn some extra cash before my senior year of college began. The carnival was a classic setup, rides, games, and food stands, but it was the fun house that drew the most attention. By day, it was a playful maze of mirrors and lights, but after dark, it transformed into a haunted attraction, supposedly housed in what was once an old mansion. My role was to manage the funhouse, ensure visitors had a good time, keep things safe, and watch as they exited. At first, the job seemed straightforward, but soon I began noticing unsettling anomalies. People would enter in groups, but the numbers never quite matched up. 12 would go in, but only 11 would come out. I tried to dismiss it as a mistake. After all, counting in the midst of carnival chaos was no easy feat. However, as the discrepancies grew more frequent, my unease deepened. 7 went in, but only 6 emerged. 10 entered, and only 9 left. Something was clearly amiss. One particularly busy afternoon, a stunning blonde girl caught my eye. She seemed almost out of place among the carnival goers. Her beauty was striking, and I couldn't help but watch her as she approached. She handed me her ticket with a smile, and I directed her into the funhouse, though I couldn't shake the feeling of wanting to see her again. As the evening wore on, I kept a close eye on the exits, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. Groups that had entered after her started coming out, but she was still nowhere to be seen. Growing concerned, I decided to take a short break from my post and investigate. I locked the entrance behind me and began to explore the funhouse. While searching, I came across something I had noticed during my initial walkthrough. A barely visible seam in one of the walls. Curiosity got the better of me and I pressed against it. A distinct click echoed and the wall slowly swung open, revealing a hidden door. I stood there, dumbfounded. What was this doing here? I then stepped into the dark, narrow corridor. Guided only by my phone's flashlight, the hallway ended at another door, which I opened to find an exit leading back to the carnival grounds. Relief washed over me. It made sense now. Some visitors had probably stumbled through this hidden exit, causing the count in errors. This hardened. I considered heading back to my post, but something compelled me to continue exploring. I suppose a part of me just wanted to extend this unexpected break. As I moved through more rooms, I found another faint seam on the wall, identical to the first. When I pressed in, another hidden door creaked open. This one was different. It did not lead to a corridor, but to a ladder descending into darkness. The stench that emanated from below was putrid and unsettling. I was told the funhouse didn't have a basement. I hesitated, but the possibility that a missing girl might be down there overrode my fear. The descent was claustrophobic, and the foul smell grew worse with every step. At the bottom, my flashlight revealed a long dark tunnel. It felt like I had crossed into another world. Rationality screamed at me to turn back, but curiosity and a sense of urgency drove me forward. The tunnel was eerily silent, and my light fell upon a white glittery purse lying in the middle of the passage. My heart raced as I recognized it. This was the girl's purse. Panic set in. Was she down here? The thought of her being in danger made my blood run cold. I shouted for her, but only silence answered. As I was about to call out again, the sound of rapid footsteps echoed through the tunnel. Terror surged through me. I bolted back towards the ladder, but halfway up I slipped and fell. The footsteps were closing in fast. I desperately braced myself for whatever was coming, but then a girl's voice, called out, pleading for help. Her voice was trembling with fear. I yelled for her to climb up, but she insisted I follow her into the darkness. I refused, practically dragging her up the ladder as quickly as I could. We emerged and I slammed the door shut behind us. Breathless and shaken, I demanded to know how she ended up in the tunnel. Her response was fragmented and unsettling. She didn't remember how she got there, only that she started hearing disturbing noises and voices. Her vacant stare and incoherent explanations only heightened my fear. I tried to question her further, but she left before the police arrived, vanishing into the night. The police investigation revealed something shocking. The mansion had once been a safe house during Prohibition, complete with secret passageways that connected to underground tunnels. The owner claimed ignorance about the history of the house, but I was skeptical. I quit my job and left the carnival behind, unable to shake the terror of that night. Questions lingered. Did the owner know about these hidden tunnels? Was the girl a victim of something far more sinister, or was she part of a larger dark scheme? The encounter left me with more questions than answers, each one more chilling than the last.